I'm back. Venom wins. Flawless victory. Fatality. Good evening and welcome back to Venom's Vault, the podcast where I talk about drag, horror, and my other niche interests. I'm your hostess, Venom, the plus-size vampire MILF of South Texas, and tonight I'm going to step out of my crypt and into the flesh pits because we are exploring one of my very niche interests and all-time favorite video game franchises, Mortal Kombat. So much so that Mortal Kombat has shaped part of the drag persona you see before you today, which is why we are going to be exploring a little bit of history about the game, some of my favorite femme fatales within the franchise, as well as my favorite games in the franchise, and rounding it out with where it all began for me, playing Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe on the Xbox 360. So sharpen your sai, fans, blades, and any other thing you have in your weapon arsenal, and let's get into it. Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to episode 6 of Venom's Vault. We took a little bit of a hiatus for the month of June, but we are back for July. And a little bit about what happened whenever I was gone. I did get into a little bit of an accident. I did have so much going on in the month of June, but here we are, and I'm ready to bring you more episodes of the podcast. I love the reception that I've got on it so far. It hasn't been anything grand or big, but I do have a little bit of an audience, so thank you so much for listening, watching, or streaming wherever you get your podcast. And let's just get right into it. So Mortal Kombat was originally a cabinet arcade game, and it slowly made its way to video game consoles. Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 are all cabinet games, and I believe it was around Mortal Kombat 4 where it started to enter the 3D fighting game territory and come to the console, which was the PlayStation 2 at the time. And it also had a couple of other games with this same 3D format, such as Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Mortal Kombat Deception, Mortal Kombat Armageddon, another one of my personal favorites, as well as Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. So these were all on PlayStation 2. And then we have our second gen consoles with the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. The Xbox 360 is what I grew up playing video games on, so that is one of my favorite consoles of all time, released in 2005, which was the year that I was born. On the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, we had Mortal Kombat 9 released in 2011, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. With that, we also have the next generation, which was Mortal Kombat X, released on the Xbox One as well as the PlayStation 4 around 2015, I believe, and that is the first Mortal Kombat game to not be made for the yesteryear consoles, like I said, the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, which broke my heart at the time because I didn't have a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One, so I had to stick to playing on the Xbox 360 and just stick to playing Mortal Kombat 9, unfortunately. And it wasn't until later that I got the PlayStation 4 and I was able to play Mortal Kombat X, which I was extremely excited about. And on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, we had not only Mortal Kombat X, but Mortal Kombat 11 as well. And then we had a complete reset of the timeline for the next generation of consoles in the PlayStation 5 and Xbox One XS Triple AirPod Max, I guess is the name of it. I really did not keep up with Xbox past the Xbox One, so forgive me if I'm not entirely correct. So with Mortal Kombat 1, I unfortunately never got around to playing it because I don't own a PS5 or an Xbox 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 LMNOP. With that game, I did see some gameplay of it, but it really was not my favorite, and I believe it's dead right now, so I don't know if they're making any more content as far as Mortal Kombat 1 goes, so that's very unfortunate. But let's get into the good stuff. So with our first segment, we are going to be talking about some of my favorite Mortal Kombat femme fatales. And before we get into it, let's get into my look. We have little spider pasties, spider in the hair, sticking true to my Venom brand. And I also wanted to give you some jewels, so I have this necklace and then these cute earrings that I just got online. And we're giving you a different kind of makeup today. Let me zoom into it. I have some purple lips. I have some purple hair. I have some purple on the lid. Just very seductive. I was inspired a little bit by Sindel because although Sindel doesn't have purple hair, I feel like this is very Sindel-esque, if you will. So I'm really excited to bring that to this podcast. I styled this hair forever ago, but life happens and it gets in the way. But we're here now, so I'm very excited to debut this hair. And speaking of hair, behind me we have Toxin in Morning with this orange unit that I just restyled to be a little bit bigger, but it's the same style that I've had in previous episodes. And on this side, we have poison with the signature black unit that still has some alligator clips on it. I'm still working on styling it. It's kind of like a placeholder as of right now. And stay tuned for this hair because it's going to be in a performance sometime soon. And if you haven't already seen this hair in action, I did wear it back in, I believe, May with a number that I will link in the description if you would like to see. Anyways, moving on to the femme fatales. Like I said, Sindel is one of my favorites, but my absolute favorite is definitely Mileena. And she very much inspires my drag character so much because of the way that she carries herself, her personality, and I also just think that she's very relatable as a character because she is half Tarkatan and half, I believe, Edenian is what Katana is. So getting into a little bit of Mileena, she originally debuted in Mortal Kombat 2 for the arcade, and she was like a purple version and a purple reskin of Katana, which is her blue counterpart. And in the lore, what I do know about Mileena in whatever kind of timeline you want to look at is that originally she was made to be a clone of Katana. However, she was mixed with not only Katana's Edenian blood, I think they're Edenian, I'm going to keep saying that, and if I'm wrong, oh well, I'm wrong. But essentially, Mileena was made as a clone of Katana with half Edenian blood and half Tarkatan blood. And if you know anything about Tarkatans have this big mangy mouth of fangs, which is what Baraka, another character in the game, is. So I love Mileena's costume design so much in every single video game that she's in, and I think it's a really cool way to make her character different from Katana because essentially in Mortal Kombat 2, and I'll throw up some pictures here, they look the same. It's literally just a reskin, a recolor of the same person, the same model, the same actor. And what is unique about Mileena is that not only that she's purple, but she teleports. She uses Sai, which are these weapons. I'll also throw up another picture right here. And so that's what I really enjoy about her character is that she has some differentiation between Katana, not only in the weapons that she uses and her abilities, but also her appearance. So she uses these really sexy costumes to get what she wants, and then whenever she reveals the mask, she has her snack right in front of her. And that's why she inspires my drag so much, because she is one of the first characters that taught me the duality between beauty and monstrosity. And even though she is a monster in the face, she is also very feminine and she has a very sensual appeal to her character. Another character that I really enjoy would be Sindel. She's another one where it's like a mixture of beauty and monstrosity. She doesn't have any physical defects to her. She actually is Katana's mother. Katana is another one of my favorite characters, but definitely not in like the top 1 or 2 in my list. And Sindel is just a MILF, and if you know anything about Venom, you know that I am a vampire MILF. And so Sindel is an older lady, but she has this big gray hair, and I love her moveset from Mortal Kombat 3. I remember playing with my brother when I was little and just throwing him around with Sindel's hair, but she also has this banshee screech that will scream your literal face off, and that's so sexy. It's appealing, it's alluring, and that's what really a lot of my favorite Mortal Kombat characters embody. Katana is another one of those characters that I mentioned before that has those alluring appeal. And so what I love about Katana is that she has these fans that are so fierce and she throws them in their blades. And I think that that's one of Katana's most amazing assets about her is her weapon. It's very unique. Mileena has size. Sindel has this staff with blades at the end of it in some iterations of the video game franchise. I know that she definitely has it in Mortal Kombat 11 because I own Mortal Kombat 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, and 3 on the Xbox 360, and Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe I used to own. Unfortunately, the disc got scratched, and so it's unplayable now. So moving on to another one of my favorite Mortal Kombat characters, we have Sonya Blade. Now she, unlike the other characters that I just mentioned, is from Earthrealm, and she is just a regular human being. But she has all of this tactical and spec ops training that makes her super badass. She has so much hand-to-hand combat skills paired with some really high-tech weapons, such as her power ring that are these purple rings that shoot lasers at somebody in mid-game. And she has great, like I said, hand-to-hand combat, so that's always really cool part of her moveset. And then she has like some missiles that shoot out of her wrist and just these really cool things. She's not a cyborg, unlike her partner Jax, who got his arms replaced with some cybernetic limbs. She does have these really high-tech gadgets with her that pairs so nicely with her really excellent combat skills. And so although she is just a human, she always is very fierce, and she's definitely one of those femme fatales that makes it onto my top 5 list and my favorite Mortal Kombat femme fatales. The last femme fatale that I really wanted to talk about on this episode was Scarlet. Now, she is like a blood witch of sorts, and her moveset's always one of the weaker ones in my opinion, especially Mortal Kombat 9, but it is very unique because she has moves where she would like stab herself and then it would take some damage away from your damage meter, but she would always use it in a way that could be reflected onto the opponent with some like blood spells, blood orbs, blood balls, teleporting just like Mileena does. So I always think that was a really cool part of her character. And she also has 2 smaller blades. I'm not sure the specific name. I know Mileena uses Sai, and I really like the way Sai look because it's like this really like horn shape with like a big blade in the middle, and I think that just looks really cool. And then how Katana uses her fan blades and Sindel uses that staff with the blades at the end of it is just really cool. And I also think that Scarlet has a really cool weapon for that matter. And so Scarlet, she's actually a character that I don't know too much about, but I always fell in love with her because she was a part of the expansion pack with Mortal Kombat 9 that I got because I played on the Xbox 360. I did not have a PS3. So when I got the expansion pack for Mortal Kombat 9, my DLC characters included Scarlet, Cyber Sub-Zero, Rain, and Freddy Krueger. So if you played on the PlayStation 3 rather than the Xbox 360, instead of Freddy Krueger, you received Kratos, which is a character from God of War, which is a game that I've never played personally. I don't really like games such as like Red Dead Redemption or Witcher or God of War. It's just not my style. I enjoy the art style of it and I enjoy the way the characters are designed, the way they look, but it's just not my type of game. I'm more of a Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, Dead or Alive. Racing games are also really fun. I used to enjoy Mario Kart, of course, but there was another racing game called DreamWorks Superstar Karts, and it was with like DreamWorks characters. We had Shrek, Fiona, and just really cool characters in that racing game, but I digress. This episode is about Mortal Kombat after all. And so moving on to something else that I wanted to talk about in the Mortal Kombat franchise was my favorite games. Personally, my very first Mortal Kombat game was Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. And I know that Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe is not universally looked up upon by the fandom, I guess. However, I really did enjoy playing that game as a kid because, I mean, it was a PG-13 game. It was a good way to ease into the franchise before you got super gory and bloody. And I loved seeing Superman fight Scorpion. I loved seeing Catwoman fight Sonya Blade. It was always one of my favorite parts of the game. And so I really enjoyed also the levels of it and how there was different aspects of the combat. It was one of those 3D games. It was coming straight off of the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox era of Mortal Kombat being in 3D games. And we'd never quite seen Wonder Woman and Superman and Batman be in a game that's a fighting game like Mortal Kombat was. And so because it was PG-13, we did have to tone back some of the fatalities and some of the gore. There's hardly any blood in the game, but I did really enjoy playing it as a kid because that's like my gateway. And after I figured out that Mortal Kombat 9 was a thing, I begged my parents to get it for me because that was so cool seeing Freddy Krueger in a fighting game and then seeing other characters too, because Sindel and Mileena and Jade, they aren't a part of Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. All I saw that I remember off the top of my head was there was really cool Sonya Blade that looked like Cammy from Street Fighter in my opinion in that game, and I saw some Katana. And so it wasn't until I discovered them in Mortal Kombat 9 that I was really starstruck and I was really dead set on I need to play that game. I need to have that game. And so that's what happened. And then from there I was super excited for the release of Mortal Kombat X, and I realized that it was no longer going to be made for the Xbox 360, and that made me really sad. And so it was this whole ordeal that my dad finally got a PlayStation 4, so we got Mortal Kombat X on that platform, and I was so happy to finally play Mileena, and I was so excited to finally play Sonya and Katana, and unfortunately there was no Jade. But if you really peep the Easter egg, there is a variation in that game that Katana has that I believe is called Morning, where she actually does have Jade's purple glowing staff, which was really cool. Nice little nod to Jade's character in there, even if she couldn't fit in the roster. And speaking of Mortal Kombat X, there were so many surprise characters like Alien, Leatherface, Jason, Predator. And I think it was really cool to see them in a fighting game sense too, because we just had Freddy Krueger on Mortal Kombat 9, so why not have Jason or Leatherface or Alien or Predator on those kind of platforms, because we kind of opened the door with Freddy Krueger and Kratos from Gears of War, so why not push it even further and have more special DLC characters? And I believe that carried on over to Mortal Kombat 11, where we saw Spawn and the Joker and RoboCop, and I believe Terminator as well, unless Terminator was from MK1. I'm not remembering off the top of my head, because I really stopped consuming Mortal Kombat 1 content whenever I saw the game wasn't doing very well, and I never personally played it, so there's that. And so in Mortal Kombat 1, I also believe that there's Ghostface as a character that's playable in that game, so I thought that was really cool. Like I said, I haven't really done much research into that game because it kind of fell off, and so I really did enjoy playing those characters within a fighting game like Mortal Kombat. And so I think that that's what Mortal Kombat has done very successfully and contributed to some of my favorite video games in the franchise, is that they have really cool special DLC characters, which I thought was really amazing. And overall, I think that personally my absolute favorite Mortal Kombat character would definitely have to be Mileena. I think that there is just something so beautiful in the duality of her character being half monster and half seductress. I think that her costume design is always very, very beautiful. Some notable costumes that come to my head is Mileena in Mortal Kombat Armageddon is one of my favorites. It's one of the originals. I love how she had kind of like this flowy mask rather than a skin tight ninja mask. I of course love Mileena's look in Mortal Kombat 9. That's where I first got introduced to Mileena's look personally. I also love Mileena's Vampiress costume in Mortal Kombat X. That was gorgeous, and I always wanted to get it, but I never got around to buying it. And yeah, I think that also in Mortal Kombat 1, Mileena doesn't look bad, but it's just not the Mileena that I'm used to. I'm used to seeing a Mileena that is more fierce and seductive rather than looking the way Mileena looks in Mortal Kombat 1 with a shaved side of a head and just a little bit more edgy, which there's nothing wrong with. That's just not the Mileena that I grew accustomed to and that I grew to love personally. But it is a reset of the whole timeline, so I mean, we're allowed to change some lore here and there, as it were. So now that I yapped your ear off about some of my favorite Mortal Kombat characters and favorite Mortal Kombat games, I just want to return to one of my favorite segments here on the podcast with Venom's Victim of the Week. And so it was so hard to pick one iconic death from Mortal Kombat as a franchise, so I think it will come to no surprise to you that Venom's Victim of the Week this week is literally everyone in the opening scene of Mortal Kombat Armageddon. So in the beginning of Mortal Kombat Armageddon, we get a really cool cutscene about everybody, all the characters in the roster fighting and trying to make it up this pyramid of stairs to get to some kind of power. This is another part of the lore that I'm not super really well versed on, but they're trying to get to something at the top of the pyramid essentially. And at the top of this pyramid of stairs, everybody's just fighting each other and killing each other, and everybody ends up dying essentially. And even Liu Kang becomes a zombie, which is a really cool part of the lore, and it's really cool to see in game as well. So literally everybody is Venom's Victim of the Week this week. Everybody ended up dying on that pyramid. So there you have it. And so far for Venom's Victim of the Week, we've had Miss Bean from Scream Queens, Chanel number 2 from Scream Queens, and now we have literally everybody from the Mortal Kombat Armageddon roster. So who will be next week's Victim of the Week in Venom's Vault? Stay tuned for next week's episode to find out. So at the end of the day, Mortal Kombat is one of the most influential and drag-shaping niche interests that I have, because growing up before I started drag, I was just a video game nerd. I loved Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, Resident Evil, and just other game franchises that just kind of helped me shape the drag character that you see before you today. But another one of the reasons that I just love Mortal Kombat is because of its legacy. It allows women to be badass, and that's something that I always find myself being extremely interested in. If you don't already know, I did make a video for one of my college courses, actually, the Uncanny course that I love so much, about women in media, and specifically women in horror films being portrayed as disposable objects of society. But in reality, society's only comfortable seeing women in power behind the lens of fiction. That's what it is at its core. It's a fictional kind of scenario, you know? And we see other horror films such as Jennifer's Body, Carrie, and Ginger Snaps, and The Love Witch sort of give women this power, this supernatural power over men in some sorts of ways, but ultimately know that society as a whole sees it as fiction, and that's what we're comfortable seeing women in power with. So what I love most about Mortal Kombat, aside from the fact that it's one of the pivotal video games in my life that I played so much growing up, is its legacy and the way that we're able to see women in power, albeit through the lens of fiction. That is something that I always have to come back around and talk about, because I did make a video that I will link in the description talking about images of women in horror movies and how society sees women as disposable objects of society oftentimes, and we're really truly only comfortable seeing women in power behind the lens of fiction, such as video games or horror films. And with the way that our world is today, we are constantly proving that statement true every single day. And it's really sad to see, because I do drag not only for my love of the art form, but also it's a love letter to crafting a female character in a position of power. I mean, of course I'm a man, but at the end of the day, I love doing drag because of the way I get to portray and put on this character as a form of entertainment for other people. And I hope that people see my point of view and see my vision. And I just want to see women in power. And that's what Venom is. She is a woman in power. She is a vampire MILF. She has a K-cup breastplate and 4-inch hip pads, and she's not afraid to use them. I love that Mortal Kombat allows us to see kick-ass women in really amazing costumes, and they don't just wear high heels, they kill people in high heels. Sometimes with their high heels if you want to get stomped on. And so at the end of the day, Mortal Kombat has this everlasting legacy that I will forever love. And regardless of what happens in the world that we live in today, it is a way for me to get out a lot of societal anger and frustration by seeing women in power kick ass. And that is something that I, and I hope everybody else and everybody watching this podcast, loves to see. So with that note, thank you so much for listening, streaming, and or watching Venom's Vault wherever you get your podcasts, either on YouTube for the video version or on Spotify for the audio version. I will say, if you're listening on Spotify, it might be worth the transition to just go see me serve a look every week in this podcast now that I'm back. I hope to be posting episodes regularly on every Tuesday like I had originally intended. However, it might be every other Tuesday. We'll just have to see how the cookie crumbles with, you know, going back to school in a month and having my own job that I just got. But stay tuned for next episode if you want to hear a little bit more about my personal life, things that have been going on. It's going to be a juicy episode. It's not going to be as scripted as my episodes typically are, but trust me, you definitely do not want to miss it. So with that being said, my darlings, I will see you next time in the vault. Bye.